So, welcome to our first Conversational Live. We're so happy to have expert Jessica Abo here with us today. And I want to just start off by asking you, Jessica, to introduce yourself, tell our audience a little bit about who you are, and then we'll jump into our Q&A.
Sure. Well, thank you for having me. I think the world of you, so I'm very excited to be joining you on your new platform and think you're amazing. I am a former TV reporter and anchor and left the news business about 2 years ago when I was working on a book, and my book and my daughter were due the same day. So that was a little bit of a busy year, and somewhere in that did a bi-coastal move from New York to LA. And now I live in LA and I have a little girl. She's almost a year and a half, married to a wonderful husband who is the reason why I came to LA because I never thought I would leave New York. And I've just been busy on the book tour and trying to help people live a more unfiltered life.
Amazing. And we are so happy to have you. For everyone who's watching, Jessica is the most amazing human being. So,
Very sweet. You're very kind. This is why I'm stealing you and I'm making you come to LA at some point, but we will talk about that in another conversation.
So fun. Yes, we'll table that for now.
You got it.
So we have this amazing box here with questions that our audience members and ambassadors, community members have submitted for you. So we're just going to pull out some questions and ask you about your journey. The questions are all loving and I just can't wait to. So we'll just ask you some questions and feel free to, share anything and everything. And I think it will be fitting in a very unfiltered way. So let's get started.
You got it. And we also should add that my poor daughter, who I love and live for, is for some reason very upset. So she's in our apartment with my husband and I'm sitting outside, which is why you see this. I don't even know what view you have. I don't even know what these doors are to. I have no idea where I am. All I know is that we have good service. You can hear me. I can hear you. You can see me. I can see you. So this is as unfiltered as it gets.
Love it. Hashtag live unfiltered. So
here you go.
So question number 1 is from Katie, who's one of our community members. And Katie wants to know what the inspiration was for writing Unfiltered.
Sure. So thank you, Katie. I originally was writing a book under a book deal that was supposed to be called Chief Empowerment Officer, How to Be the CEO of Your Life. And at the time that I was working on that outline, I just sort of felt like everywhere I went, people were talking about how they were signing off all of their social media because every time they logged on, they felt really depressed or they felt like their life didn't stack up against everyone else's around them. And I just sort of felt like I just want to write a book about how to be as happy as you look on your social media feed. And I kept saying that over and over and over again, that eventually the publisher was really kind and just said, if you want to write about that, let's just scrap the first proposal and have you write about this instead. So I had moved to LA in October and came up with this kind of new idea and theme for the book, and landed after doing some work in LA full-time in December and wrote the whole thing from December 1st until February 15th. So it was a little crazy to revamp, but that was the inspiration. And I felt so strongly about changing it that we just sort of scrapped everything and went for it.
I love it. Oh my gosh, that is such a short amount of time to write a book.
It was a little crazy.
Wow. Well, it's an amazing book, and I can't wait to put a link here so everyone will know how to go.
Oh, thank you.
But let's go on to the next question. We'll keep this going.
Okay, great.
Okay, so this one is from Andre, and Andre wants to know, how do you actually live unfiltered? That's a great question.
Yes, love it, Andre. I would say, the next time that you go to post something on social media, think about what you're posting and why. Is it your 100th selfie? And if so, would you maybe feel comfortable sharing one of the other 99 you took that wasn't as perfect as the one you're posting? Maybe if you woke up and you realized when you got to the office that you have 2 completely different shoes on, which has actually happened to a few friends of mine, would you be comfortable sharing something like that? I think just taking a moment, whether it's something really serious going on in your life, if you feel comfortable sharing that, or just showing that you are not always this perfect, filtered version of your life. I think those are some little ways to live unfiltered, because it just humanizes us when we can connect in a really authentic way. And I think sometimes when we let our guard down and we show the raw and unedited parts of our life, that's really when people connect to us the most. But that's not saying you have to bare your soul every single day, but just being a little bit more open and honest and real, I think, is a way to start living unfiltered.
I love that. And from your experience, I'm just going to jump in. What could that first step look like to start living unfiltered? Like, is it posting a photo without a filter? Is it reevaluating, like you said, maybe your filtered lifestyle? What's that first step?
So something I did when the book first came out that I really had a lot of fun doing, I stopped doing this one thing only because we don't post pictures of our daughter. But in the beginning of just having a newborn, or just things happening around our apartment, I would take pictures of what was happening around us, just not of her. And I would say, like, what you see here is Brett and I on our way to a wedding, and we look all dolled up. But what you don't see is me an hour ago jumping up and down trying to get into my Spanx and pulling something in my arm because I don't know what I did, but I for the rest of the night couldn't raise my arm because I had pulled something. That wasn't something you saw in the post, but something I wrote. So maybe you could take a picture of yourself and say, here's what you see. You see me getting ready to go to the Grammy Awards, or you see me ready to go, to work today, or whatever it is that your fabulous life is, leading you to. But you can add but what you don't see pictured is, and just let people in that way.
I love that. I'm going to start doing that. I think that's okay, we're going to move on to the next question. Okay, so this question here is from Sam. And Sam wants to know if you've ever had any personal mental health struggles, and if so, what does that look like?
So personal mental health struggles. When my daughter was born, I had a lot of anxiety around her safety and my husband's and my safety for that matter. And I think living in a world where mass shootings are our reality, thinking about her going to school one day and having to come home and tell me about her first active shooter training drill, really kind of put me down a road that I had never really addressed, I would say. I think because I covered TV news for 15 years, I probably had a touch of, something that just wouldn't let me let go of all of those really horrible things I saw in my career: body bags, bloody crime scenes, spending time with people on death row. I mean, it just, my journalism career took me to a lot of different places. And as a journalist, you're not really given a support system. You're just given the next story assignment, and you really don't have time to process anything that you just saw. And I covered a lot of devastation in my career. And I think once I became a mom and I left the news business, it sort of all flooded me at once. And that was something that I eagerly wanted to address, and felt very, strongly about finding the right kind of help for me to kind of get through those emotions, because I want to raise a daughter that thinks the world is a beautiful place and isn't afraid of her own shadow, and, curtails her life because of things that could happen simply because her mother used to cover them on the news. So that was probably my first real experience with mental health. And I just hope that in sharing what I have been through, that it encourages other people who look like they have an awesome life to know that they're not alone, and to not be afraid to say, hey, I'm living with something that doesn't feel right, and I don't want to live like this, and I also don't want to raise one who has to live with this. So let's try to work on it earlier than later, so I can help her have the coping skills she needs as she grows in life, and takes on situations that may be overwhelming or scary for her.
I love that. And I think it's such an important message for everyone to hear, especially today. I mean, today is World Mental Health Day. So I feel like this conversation is particularly relevant and important. And I want to throw in my own question here. This week at the Conversationalist, we're really diving into the connection between mental health and social media. And I'm curious what you think that connection is, and if there is a connection between our mental health and our social media use.
So there are so many studies being done about this topic. Psychologists know that when we respond to our phone, half the time it's because there's an actual buzz, an alert, a ring, a notification, something is pulling us to our device. The other half the time, we're responding to our brain saying, oh, you could be getting a message. Oh, you could be missing out on something. And that fear of missing out pulls us back to our device. So we're really responding to this phantom buzz. So social media now is showing addictive properties. And it's not a surprise that that's the case, because I've learned along the way through the book tour from doctors that I've done interviews with, that some of the people hired to work on these social media platforms were the same people who designed slot machines. And when you think about a slot machine, how it keeps you there all day long, pulling, trying to hit the jackpot, our phones act in a really similar way, in that they're pulling us back in to be a consumer for longer and longer and longer. So, psychologists are sharing how our phones can increase our cortisol, our levels of stress, anxiety, depression. And I think people have to be very careful about their usage and be a little bit more proactive about monitoring how often they're on their device and why they're logging on to begin with. If you're logging on simply for validation or a sense of belonging, it's not the same thing as getting a hug or actually being with someone face to face. So I think social media is by no means the enemy. I think loneliness is. And I think when people feel lonely, they turn to social media. But if we did a better job connecting in real life with people who may need our love, support, time, and attention, people may feel more validated and not feel like the only place to feel seen and heard is online.
I love that. And it's tricky. I mean, it's such a smart business move, right? That platforms have integrated this feature that feels like there is a never-ending scroll, and you could keep scrolling forever and ever to keep you
forever and ever. And it's happening too, like even in the dating world, because people now just swipe. And at some point, like you actually forget there's a human being with interests and a purpose on this planet and passion points and all these things, because you're really just like, oh, swipe left, swipe right, swipe left, swipe right. And, I think even just in terms of how we date and how we connect with people, all of it's becoming a little mindless, and it just takes us that much more, it takes that much more energy or, effort on our part to really make authentic connections with people, which is why, your platform is so important, because even though people may be listening in to this conversation, it's 1 degree closer than just, what people may be experiencing if they haven't seen anyone today or talked to anybody today.
Totally. And I also hope that whoever is watching is, communicating in the chat, asking questions, finding other ways to have these conversations, whether starting online to translate into face-to-face, but at least, like you said, starting it and just having more of these real interactions, because sometimes we just have to challenge ourselves at the end of the day to push through the really filtered, curated nature of social media.
Yeah. And, I think it's important to remember that people post selectively positive information. And, psychologists also talk about something called the social comparison theory. And basically all that says is we are social animals. And just like other animals, we compare the status of ourselves to the status of other animals. And it's in our DNA to act like this. It's how the animal kingdom operates. And I think, just in the way you'd go to the gym to develop a 6-pack or to, run a faster mile, you actually have to practice this as though it's a physical activity, which is to remind yourself that you're looking at someone else's curated highlight reel. And what you see is not always the whole story. And again, I don't think in life people have to bear every emotion that they have, in order to feel like they're living an unfiltered life. But I do think finding 1 or 2 people to talk to about how you're feeling, or being the friend who just decides, just in the same way I may be the designated driver on a night in college when my friends were drinking, which I often was. Maybe I'm just going to be the designated check-in person just to make sure that everyone I know is doing okay. And that includes your strong friends too. Sometimes it just requires you to send a note to someone saying, hey, how are you? Anything going on you feel like sharing that I don't know about? Good, bad, I'm here for you. Because we don't really stop and do that very often. And I think sometimes when we give people an invitation to open up, they take it more so than us thinking if they needed to call on us, they would. Sometimes people in their darkest moments aren't in that place of wanting to reach out to the world, let alone post about it. But I think we can all be better friends and checking in on the people around us just to say, hey, I'm here for you. No reason why. It's a simple Monday. Just wanted to let you know I'm thinking of you and I love you. And that might help your friends who need you come to you a little faster.
And let's go on to our next question.
Sure.
I love what you were talking about with social comparison theory, because I know there's a question in here about comparison, but we might not find that prompt. Oh, okay, this is great. This is from Hannah. Hannah wants to know, do all social media platforms have the same negative effect on our mental health? Great question.
That is an awesome question. So I would say it's not so much the platform as much as it is how we use it. So I have like nothing with Twitter. Like when I go on Twitter, I have no feelings. I'm like, oh, Twitter, okay, great. Usually when I go onto Twitter, it's just to see that an article that I have done or a video I have done, because I contribute to several journalism platforms, it has been posted, and I just sort of like look to see that if it's been liked or shared, and just sort of keep track of it. So I don't walk away feeling from anything from Twitter like, oh my gosh, woe is me, or someone else is living this grand life. Instagram and Facebook are Instagram and Facebook, I would say for me, are platforms that I go to just to sort of see what's going on in the world, what's going on in my social network, and, wish someone a happy birthday, or see someone's on vacation and make a mental note, when they get back, to like check in and be like, how was your trip, sort of thing. So I think you have to know where you're going and why. And if you find that you feel a certain way on one platform over another, pay attention to that. That's really, really valuable information for you. And I could totally see someone saying, Facebook doesn't really resonate with me, so when I go on, I really don't care, because it's usually my parents and their friends, versus Instagram, it's my peer network. And I find that instead of it being a social network, it's like a social stress work for me. That's telling you something really important. So I would say, I don't really know from a psychology standpoint how these apps were designed, if any of them really do impact your mental health more than another one does. But I would say if you feel like you have a different visceral reaction to one platform or over another, to really listen to those feelings.
Great advice. I hope that advice can be taken.
Me too.
We'll go to the next one. Okay, so this question is from Julian. Julian's one of our community members. And Julian says, I was sitting in class the other day, and one of my good friends seemed to be feeling down. I saw them post a happy photo on Insta last night, so I didn't ask anything about it. But what should I say? Should I reach out? And do you think that person is struggling?
My feeling there is always reach out. Always reach out, always reach out, always reach out. Oftentimes people in life think other people don't want them to reach out, or they know they're going through a hard time and they don't want to be annoying or in their face, so they don't reach out. But the worst thing you can do is send a message to someone that says thinking of you. And that's as far as it goes. But I think the damage that happens when you don't reach out and someone is in pain, I think it has a longer lasting effect on that person's view of their relationships. So, if you write back to that person, saw you, posted something really happy, but you looked really down, just checking in to make sure you're okay. I think that makes you a really awesome and in tune friend, to be honest. And if that person is like, I'm totally fine, what are you talking about? Okay, well, like, you know what? No harm done. And if that person says, you know what, actually, I just posted that to make myself feel better, but this is what was really happening, then you're going to feel like friend of the year. And I think sometimes it's worth taking that risk.
And I love what you said about how easy it is, right? Like, you don't know what impact that could have on someone, but it's just a simple check-in. You're going to be on your phone anyway, so why not check in on that person? I love that. Amazing. So instead of pulling out another question, I want to ask you a question.
Sure.
Since Conversationalist is all about having these difficult conversations and finding ways to overcome them, what advice do you have about how we can open up more conversations about mental health and social media to start living more unfiltered?
So my response to that is actually to have more conversations with people in real life. I think getting people together for lunch, for coffee, even a phone call, I think taking conversations off of social media is really important. I don't know when the pendulum will swing back the other way, when we start to spend more time outside in nature like we used to when we were little. And, we have these breaks in our day where we're not on social media in the same way. If you follow the Jewish faith, you take a break from life when you observe Shabbat. Like, I don't know when we as a society kind of pull back from social media and our technology, just because it seems like everything is becoming more and more tech obsessed. And I think just being with people in real life is huge. And if you make the effort to take someone out to lunch on his or her birthday, instead of just sending a post, then that's one way to achieve this. If you send someone a card to say, I'm really sorry for your loss, or however your faith acknowledges someone's passing, whether it's making a donation, sending a meal, sending flowers, offering to take someone to the cemetery so they don't have to do a visit by themselves. I think anything that enables you to have a real life interaction with someone is the best way for us to have stronger relationships and improve our mental health.
I love that. And thank you so much. That's all the time that we have, but thank you for joining us. And I hope that
Thank you.
can be able to continue the conversation and, like you said, start living unfiltered and use technology as a tool to have conversations in real life and take it off of social. So thank you so much, Jessica. Loved having you. And I'll write
Sophie.
comments so people can connect with you afterwards.
Okay, great.
Okay, thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.